that was supposed to be Hanratty's best friend, Hanratty made a remark to him some months previous. If ever, he says to France, if ever you want to hide any gear that you don't want, that's the only seat that lifts up in the bus, the back seat of the bus, which Mr. France said in Bedford Court.
Hanratty had told him that the back seat of a bus was a good place to hide things.
To hide things, yeah.
France put the gun there, he put the cartridge cases in the Vienna hotel, and the hunt was then switched from Alphon, after she failed to identify him, to Hanratty. That's what we're saying.
What gets me is that when the cartridge cases was found in the Vienna hotel, in room 24, they wanted the man that stayed in room 6, which afterwards we found out who it was Peter Louis Alphon.
On the night of the murder?
On the night of the murder. He stayed there on the night of the murder. And he was put on an identity parade, which Miss Story failed to pick out. And I believe if she had have picked him out, that he would definitely be a dead un.
Alphon had behaved very suspiciously after the murder, and police had in fact launched a nationwide hunt for him, only releasing him when Valerie Story failed to pick him out at the first identification parade. Since Hanratty's execution, Alphon has in fact confessed to the murder several times, firstly in private, and finally at a public press conference in Paris in May 1967.
Peter Alphon took me and Jeremy Fox to the cornfield where the whole thing started near Slough at 1 o'clock in the morning in the fog and the ice in March. I didn't know the area. I'd never been there in my life. He was able to say, we'll stop here. I left something in the field. I was able to identify it later.
I said to him, did you shoot Gregson? He said, yes. I said, did you shoot and rape Valerie Story? He said, yes. He said, Mr. Hanratty, I've come here today to compensate you. Let me compensate you for what has happened to you and your family. I never thought for one moment that they'd have had enough evidence to do as they'd done to your son.
Every effort was made to get a reprieve. Alphon said, I cannot give myself up. It's my life or his. And he said, I'm more important. I've got a mission in life. Hanratty is expendable. Well, I don't have to tell you how I felt that night. Right up to the evening of the execution, Peter Alphon was in the house with myself and Jeremy Fox, and my brother Frank were in the same building. Fenner Brockway was there till 4 o'clock in the morning in his pajamas, ringing up the Home Office. They sent Home Office officials round and Scotland Yard officers. They said, where's Alphon? I said, he's upstairs. They looked at their watch. They said, keep him there. We'll be back. They never came back. They were playing for time. Meanwhile, the last few hours of Hanratty's life were ticking away. And Alphon, who was later not only to threaten me till I had to get police protection, but various people from Lord and Lady Russell to God knows who, year after year, that night he was very much afraid. We are going to go on with this campaign. We're going to go from here to Slough, and we're going to go to other areas, and we're going to write books and go on until this man's name is cleared, until the rotten corruption which went into the framing of James Hanratty and the legal finding of him guilty and his execution is shown up once and for all.
I just want to ask, you've very neatly painted Arcott as some sort of intriguer who was determined to frame Hanratty from the very start. Can you answer me two questions? Firstly, what possible motive can you conceive would he have for going to these lengths to frame Hanratty or to make sure the case actually stuck? And secondly, what possible motive is there for such a gargantuan official cover-up as seems to have taken place?
Now, look at it as it was at the time, and those of you that remember it will remember this, that the A6 murder got more publicity after the murder than perhaps any other crime since the war.
that it got fantastic publicity. I've just spent several weeks going through the newspaper cuttings, and it is fantastic the way the newspapers treated this thing. First of all, for instance, she said that it was a hitchhiker. And you remember that hitchhikers throughout the land find it impossible to get lifts for about 3 weeks until afterwards it was actually found out that he wasn't a hitchhiker, that he'd barged his way into the car. Now, it was imperative that the police, if they were to appear as an efficient force, should find the man who'd done this crime. It was imperative that they should do it. And therefore I think that the rigging is not an immediate malicious operation started from the moment that they dropped Alphonse. I believe that certain evidence pointed to Hanratty. They went for Hanratty, and when they found they couldn't stand up an alibi immediately, they determined to get it. And therefore, whole sections of evidence which were appeared to be in favor of him were twisted and rigged.
In the death cell, I spoke to my son for 90 minutes, and I asked him if there was anything else he wanted to tell me. And he says, Dad, there is only one thing I want to tell you. I did not do this crime that they've pinned this on me, that I'm going to face tomorrow morning. And I want you, Mum, Richard, and Peter, and Michael, never let anybody say wrong against me. I want you to clear my name. Well, I walked out of the condemned cell, and I've known my son from a baby. He would not have put that on his family or on me to clear his name. He'd have told me, Dad, I've let you the family down, forget about me. Nobody would have been the wiser but myself. Now, when I come out of that death cell, I thought to myself, well, there's something wrong, seriously wrong here. I'm a man, I've never been against capital punishment. If a man does a crime, he deserves all, whatever the country may put upon him. But beyond all doubt in my mind, I am convinced, for in this last 8 years, what I have learned from different sources in the country, that my son had no connection with this crime whatsoever. He was definitely framed.
This is the last letter that Jimmy wrote to Michael. Dear Mick, I'm going to do my best to face up in the morning with courage and strength, and I'm sure God will give me the courage to do so. Mick, now you are the eldest in the family, I'm counting on you to look after the family. I know that I could not count on anybody better than yourself. Mick, we always got on well together, and we had many good times together over the years. But I'm going to ask you to do me a small favour. That is, I would like you to try and clear my name of this crime. Someone, somewhere, is responsible for the crime, and one day they will venture again. Then the truth will come out, and then, Mick, that will be your chance for to step in. I feel the police will try to hush it all up if they get the chance. So, Mick, I'm counting on you to keep your eyes on the paper. Well, Mick, that is, at the time, is drawing near. It is almost daylight, so please look after Mum and Dad for me, as you could not wish to have better parents than ones you have got. I only wish I could have had the chance all over again, but never mind, Mick, as I don't know what I have done to deserve this. But, Mick, that is fate for you. Thanks for all the trouble you have been. So can I assure you that you have not been wasting your time, as it will all help to bring out the truth in the end. And Mick, don't let anyone say a bad word about me. I feel I have to say goodbye for now. Give my best wishes to Mum and Dad and all the family. Your loving brother, Jim.